What's up, Photo Booth family? Drew here, special guest. We have Hans, co-host of the Photo Booth 101 University podcast, and one of the most important people in Photo Booth 101 when we're talking like the mentor programs and all that. We wanted to make a video where we're talking about some tips and tricks on the photo booth drop-off. We're talking about dropping off a photo booth, digital sharing only. We're not doing prints. You know, this is a common thing a lot of people are getting into, but I feel like we have enough knowledge together where we can actually maybe help someone that's considering doing it, or if you just started doing it, this is a video you must watch. So I'll start off, and then maybe we can go back and forth on tips. I think the most important thing is understanding, you know, before you doing your first one, settings, iPad settings. Okay. Setting the iPad to never sleep, making sure guided access is on is very important, but most importantly, internet connection, which I know you could probably we could talk about this forever. So yeah, those are the main important ones. Running a speed test is very, very important too. Like going to Google and literally typing in Google internet speed test and understanding that LumaBooth recommends 10 megabytes per second upload speed or better. What's the lowest you've actually done? I know they recommend 10, but I've been on 5 before.
I've been on 6.
6, yeah.
And it runs smooth.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what they're doing is they're covering their asses. They would rather have a higher one. Yeah. So, you know, I mean,
so they could blame it on the internet.
Yeah, so it's your fault.
So they could
Yeah, but like also too, like another pro tip is like, if you're doing a drop off, I don't recommend you allow video clips that are super long. The bigger the file, the more chances of the internet not being able to actually send it out.
Yeah, because it's uploading a bigger file.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, man, that's my first part, and I'll let you talk about like maybe some tips that you have for anyone watching.
Yeah, so once you've established and you already know, you've already done your prints, you're a tenant, then you already know how to diagnose certain problems, like your speed tests, like restarting the iPad because of whatever, it's glitching out and it's stuck on pending. We talked about it just now on the live, but it was super important, and I'll talk about it again. But like knowing where you're going, especially here in Cali. Cali's so huge that you could they a lot of wedding venues are out in the boonies. They're out in the boonies where they don't have good cellular data, and then sometimes the Wi-Fi is crap. So planning ahead and be like, hey, maybe the drop off is not the biggest idea, or if they are insisting on a drop off anyways because they don't want to see your face, right? Like they don't want to see an attendant. They want to have a private wedding, which is common. Just set expectations. Be like, hey, like they could still do the text messaging part, but it's not going to send until we connect it to our internet connection. Absolutely. Because the venue doesn't have Wi-Fi, because cellular is not really good out there. Yeah. So set expectations on a drop off so they understand it and they're not disappointed. And I tell them, like, hey, I know your guests are not getting it right away, but encourage them. Like, it takes you guys also a little bit of like encouragement for like, oh, come on, let's go take a picture, because the more memories that they capture on that photo booth, the more that they're gonna have. So I feel like setting expectations and telling that it's gonna capture, it's gonna send once we connect. They feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, and contracts too, right?
Yeah, contracts.
Yeah. The contracts are important. Like, it's impossible for a customer to get upset about something, or no, they can get upset, but it's hard for it to be justified if it's in contracts that they've signed. Contracts to me aren't just to protect like you getting paid, which most people think, or damage. It's more than that. It's also an assumption killer. Like the contract should have, if you're doing a drop off, there should be a section in there, right? Like the ones that we sell, the ones we use, you guys have access to these. The contract says that our photo booths rely on LTE/Wi-Fi. So if the connection stops or slows down, people can use the booth, but they have to wait until we get back. This is important, right? Because if you just provide a photo booth drop off to somebody and you don't tell them, and they have no expectations of what can happen, if they're using the booth while you're gone and no one's getting their photos, they don't know that it's delayed. In their mind, it's like, I got ripped off. This thing's not working. It's
not working.
It's useless. Yeah, and then I've had a few customers call and just say like, hey, this is like with an attitude. It's not working. It's like, oh, in the contracts. And also, I always tell the person that is there before I leave, right? Because there should always be like a person of contact. I say, look, this can happen, and I tell them. So I'll be like, oh, speak to Janet. I also told her to. Like, oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah.
As long as it's gonna send. So as long as you clear that up, that helps. Another tip, so I guess we'll switch to my turn. Another tip for me to you guys when doing a drop-off is never, ever, 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 ever put your photo booth out without shade. I don't care if you're coming in the morning where there's no sun out. I'm telling you, the sun will come out and there's a chance that your photo booth will get destroyed. Always shade. Always. Non-negotiable.
Indoors.
Yep. Indoors, or if it's outdoors under a deck to where there's no issues, like or under awning, a canopy. Yeah. So that's my tip number 2.
Yeah, and I guess just talking about that. That's a good one. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like putting it on dirt. So I usually tell them like, hey, try to put it somewhere where it's nice and clean. I like keeping my equipment clean, keeping it nice and fresh, and it just more presentable. Whereas if you have it out, in a tent, like sometimes they rent those big wedding tents, but it's on dirt. I really advise against that. So something to keep in mind. And then it has to be even, just because of they could trip over and make your equipment fall. I'm trying to think of something else. Internet's the biggest thing.
Yeah, internet.
What do you got?
Well, I like to, when I go for the drop-off, I always like to ask while I'm there, just making sure the pickup time is still 11 p.m. or whatever we had agreed on, because a lot of times the clients, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, if you're doing an all-day drop-off, right, and I guess we could talk about like if you should do an all-day drop-off or not, but my answer is yes. But sometimes they'll say we want it until 11 p.m., just because they want the value, but they're not telling you that the venue actually closes at 10. So I like to just ask again while I'm there, just making sure you want us to come at 11. And it happens more than you think. They'll say, you know what, actually it's 10 o'clock. And it's like, perfect. Because this has happened to us before where we just assumed that it was 11 because that's what they told us. Then I go to pick up the booth and the venue's closed. And then I have to make a trip on Monday. Or I had to make a phone call and be like, hey, can I come pick up my stuff?
No, and that's another thing that I like talking about.
You're out of frame.
Talking about the all day. I've done ones where it's at houses, right? They like the value. They're having a backyard party. I still push for indoors. And then if I feel the vibe and everything is good, I have no problem leaving it overnight. I'll leave it overnight. I know some people are scared of leaving it overnight. I'm cool with it leaving overnight. I go to sleep well. I'm chilling. Wake up the next day. In the afternoon, go pick it up and be like,
it depends on the person, right? Because there's been times where they've asked, can we keep it until 4 or whatever, and I'm just like, sorry. And there's some people where I'm like, keep it all night. I'll come, I'll come, but I just tell them to unplug it. I say just unplug it. I don't even call it. I never call it an iPad. I'll say the device will turn off. It'll run out of battery and it'll turn off.
I call it a screen.
I call it the screen's gonna turn off. Yeah, that's smart.
I call it a screen. I feel like it cheapens the experience if you call it an iPad.
Yeah.
So I'll the screen's gonna turn off.
Let's talk about this really quick too. Like, I like to sell the experience, not the tool. So that's why that's another reason why I never call it iPad, is because it's like, I want to sell you the experience. And sometimes if they hear the word iPad, they're like, well, don't iPads have bad cameras? Or I have an iPad. So yeah, guys, don't call it an iPad photo booth. Just call it.
That's why you do free events, so you have pictures to show them. Like, this is the quality that we have. Do you still think it looks cheap? And they think it looks cheap because they're taking pictures with their iPad without any lighting. Now, when you add the lighting, now the pictures look like really well. So
100%. Yeah, man. And some other tips too, man. Like, get into the habit before you leave the venue. Last thing you do is you film your photo booth, right? Every little inch of it. You film the prop table, you film the backdrop, then take a photo. Okay, before we talk about the photo, take the video, so when you come back to pick it up, you do the same video. If there's any damage that was on the second video that wasn't on the first, something happened in between. So if you need to hit them up and say, hey, this was broken here at the party, you have proof, versus not having any videos and just saying, oh, this is broken. The customer may think, oh, you're just trying to take advantage, right? You're scamming me. With the video, it's different. Also, I like to take a photo, side profile of the booth. So we got backdrop, we got photo booth. I take a photo. That way, when I come to pick up the booth, and probably 20% of my events, they move the booth back. So I take a photo before we leave, when I go to pick it up. And then if the client were to, they never have, complain about the booth being moved back and you can see over the backdrop, if they were to complain, I said, well, someone at your party moved it. And that's why in the contracts that we have, there's a section that says if the equipment is moved, you owe us X amount of money. Not to charge them for that, to be like, look, someone at your party moved it. You know, technically there is a fee here in the contracts because when people are moving our stuff, usually things break and sometimes it's hard for us to tell, but I'm not gonna charge you. I'm not gonna charge you, but just wanna let you know that like that happened at your party. And it's super easy to tell in the gallery, right? If you're looking at the gallery, it's easy to tell. Oh, I guess you can talk about that too. Like how do you check if the booth is working after? Like on PhotoShare, but you can tell in the gallery when the booth was moved back because you have one image where you can see nothing but the backdrop. Then the next one, you have like 8 people in there and then you can literally see like the backdrop from like here. So so what's your tip on checking on the event while you're away? What's that process like?
Yeah, so what I like about LumaBooth is they provide a service called PhotoShare, photoshare.co. And right there, you can go on photoshare.co and I call it a live gallery, right? And what I like doing is sending this live gallery to them once the event starts, like once you already launch it, share that link and send it to them, to whoever got you. And I just like, hey, you just refresh and you could see like the latest pictures. But what I like is it's mostly for me because I want to see the latest pictures too, because if they're not, you know, if it's 9 p.m. and you dropped it off at 5 p.m. and there's still no pictures on it,
you start to sweat, right?
That's when you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
But sometimes I won't even get a phone call, and literally I'll drop it off at 5 p.m., 9 p.m., no pictures, 10, 11, 12, freaking like 100 pictures.
Yeah.
So sometimes don't freak out just yet. You know, just shoot a quick text. Hey, I've noticed that there's no pictures on my software.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure everything's okay.
Dude, we're dropping so many gems here. So I love that you brought that up. And just remember too, a question you need to ask is, like if you're doing an all-day drop-off, yes, they may ask you to come at 3, but sometimes they don't, like if you're not asking when does the party start, it could be concerning because like what if the party starts at 9 but they're asking for you to drop it off at 3? If you don't do drop-offs all day, then don't worry about it. But like knowing when the party starts, that's usually when you want to start checking the gallery. Yeah, and there's been times before where Monse and I were like, 9 o'clock comes around and we're like, fuck, dude, no photos. And I'm like looking at Monse, I'm like, did you plug in the iPad? And she goes, why are you telling me that? And I'm like, I start to freak out a little bit, but then I'm like, okay, wait, hold up. The party starts in an hour.
Or it started at 8 p.m., but they're not taking pictures till like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just, I don't know. So yeah, and sometimes it's like a simple text that I'll send, like, hey, you know, and some customers appreciate it, like, hey, no, yeah, everything's okay. We just haven't taken pictures, but they like that attentive part of it. And sometimes they'll just be like, oh yeah, no, we haven't used it yet. Like, I don't know. It's just having PhotoShare and being able to check on the live gallery, making sure everything's going well it puts me at ease.
Oh, bye, Monse.
So
she's leaving. She's saying bye to you.
Bye, Monse.
We'll leave this in, guys. Getting the uncut. Yeah, man, that is a gem for sure. 2, also, what I like to do too is check the gallery, like, you know, towards the ending part of the rental. And I always like to see, like, if they're using it a lot, I'll send a message to the person, like, hey, I'm checking the gallery. Looks like people are still using it. Or, you know, like, hey, you guys just started using it not too long ago. Do you want us to stay later? Or do you want to keep it an extra hour, right? And meaning we're going to charge them. And doing that sometimes can be like, yeah, how much extra? And I'll say, look, I'm not there. So typically it would be 75. Just give us 30 extra. You can keep it for the extra hour. This is amazing for me. Oh, what does that mean? I just sit on my couch a little bit longer? You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, you can always do that. Do you have any tips here? I have a few more if you don't. I don't want to keep yapping. Okay. So when it comes to doing a drop-off, I always like to offer the clients, like, you know, some people book the digital drop-off because they just can't afford or like convince themselves to spend the money on the prints. So what I'll say is like, look, let's do the digital, but I'll let them know like, hey, after the event, the next day, if you want the prints, we can print them for you for a fee. But like that's only if you want it, and most people don't. So I always give them that in their head so they know like, okay, I'll get the prints if I want. Majority of the time they don't want it because they're just happy with the experience. But another pro tip is if you're doing a drop-off, you guys make sure 100% that you're putting your website on the template. The template, right, the design, because if it's a drop-off and it's a digital drop-off, you can bet your ass that majority people are going to be sending that photo to social media. And if you have 80 people using the photo booth at a party, let's just say half of them, 40 people, upload to Instagram. You're literally getting free promotion, directing people because they'll see the website when they're sharing it, and that's something you have to take advantage of. And if you guys are new, you don't have a website, or if you're like Steven from 321 Snap, you've been in the business for almost a year and you don't have a website, I'm calling you out, bro. Then put your phone number. I see way too many people put their Instagram handle. Not everyone gets what that means, especially old people, right? If they just see where it says at, you know, Tito's Toros or at Best Photo Booth LA, like they're not going to know that that's an Instagram handle.
Right.
So website or phone number. Yeah.
Oh, and while you're talking about that, you know how I started kind of like asking for reviews is that gem that you drop when it's a drop off.
Oh yeah.
Tell me, hey, if you leave a review with pictures, like I'll mail you.
Send you the photo.
Yeah. So that's something that to keep in mind, because Google reviews literally will attract people if they're considering you between 3 companies, but you have 10 reviews versus the other people have 2.
Yeah.
They're gonna go with the person that's a little more reputable.
Facts, 100%.
So that's one, and you talked to me about it, and I've been using it, and it's been working.
Hell yeah. I love that. Yeah, man. Too, look, let's talk about this too. Like we talked about kind of like strategies of protecting yourself and things to do, not to do. I want to talk about getting content at a drop-off. Okay. It's very difficult to get good content when you're dropping off a booth because you're typically coming before anyone shows up and you're usually picking it up while everyone's leaving. So if you want to get content of people using the booth, I recommend biting the bullet, maybe coming back 30 minutes before time.
Yeah.
Maybe you show up 30 minutes before time, before pickup time. You can ask the DJ to make an announcement only if there's not a wedding coordinator or event coordinator. This is another pro tip. Never go straight to the DJ without asking the coordinator because you could be ruining plans. So if there's a wedding planner, just say, hey, I'm here 30 minutes early to pick up the booth. Do you guys want to make a last call? I don't want to just show up and then boom, take everything down. So they'll make that announcement and guess what will happen? People go to the booth, then you literally have 30 minutes to get your phone to get that content. That's just one thing I do think that not regret, but it's a downside because the content's important. If you're only doing drop-offs and you're not there at all, like what are you only going to post? The photos taken? Yeah.
Without anybody?
It's always good to show people using it, so that's pretty much it for that, man.
Yeah.
And man, where can people follow you? Do you have any, before we end it, do you have any other tips on the drop-off?
On the drop-offs? No. Pickups could be another day.
Yeah, for sure. And then last thing I would say about a drop-off, this is common sense. I say it all the time, but make sure your camera settings are automatic. You don't want to do manual camera settings because if the light changes and it's in manual, your photos will either be overexposed or underexposed. And practice. And if you want to ease into doing drop-offs, don't do it and go home. Set up your first one and go to the parking lot. Wait 20 minutes. Go back into the venue. Check it out. Do it every 20 minutes. Then the next time you do it, instead of 20 minutes, you wait 1 hour in between time. And then just slowly get comfortable. And last thing I can really tell you here, guys, is the drop-off will be your favorite type of rental if you're only being if you're doing like an attendant, right? Because you're gonna realize you don't need to be there. I mean, again, drop-off should only be with an iPad booth. I would never recommend a DSLR setup. So yeah, you're gonna fall in love with it. You're gonna love the passivity. You're gonna love saving your time. And to me, I don't know how you feel here, bro. It's the easiest way to scale your business.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because you could do more than one.
Perfect, bro. So where can people follow you again?
Yeah. So we have 2 companies. Where I got most of my business experience was with Tito's Toros, and then where I'm getting a lot of mentorship from him, and that company, has piggied off Drew's knowledge. That's been super valuable. Best Photo Booths LA.
Love it. All right, guys, make sure to follow, subscribe. If you're watching this on TikTok, follow us here. We'll see you in the next one. God bless. See you soon.